Wow, happy legal tampering Monday on 580 Sports Talk. We are back in studio. The whole crew is back together. I am Brendan Dworzinski. He is Dan Lucero. He is Spencer Dupuis. And ladies and gentlemen, NFL free agency legal tampering is off and running. Chris Jones back in Kansas City. James Winchester back in Kansas City. And the rest of the NFL is popping off. Tons of crazy news around the NFL. Kirk Cousins is coming off a torn Achilles and just got $180 million.
100 guaranteed?
100 guaranteed for a quarterback who has never won anything.
A 36-year-old who can't move already.
Yes.
Coming off a torn Achilles. Never won anything. Never won any major awards. But he does look good with those chains on and those fake gold teeth. He's going to fit right in Atlanta.
He got $185 million from the Minnesota Vikings for 3 playoff, not wins, games.
Yeah, we're 1-2.
6 years, 3 playoff games, 2 of them losses, $185 million. And Atlanta said, give me some of that.
No, what Atlanta said was, that sounds like an Atlanta Falcon. And now we get
playoff failures.
Now we get 4 years of Magic City Mondays with Kirko.
I can't believe it, man. This is absolutely this day has been incredible. And that's just scratching the surface. We had Russell Wilson news last night, Saquon Barkley, Christian Wilkins, former KU guy, Dorrance Armstrong got a nice little bag from Spencer's Commanders. We've got a ton to get to. We're only on for an hour and a half today. We are done at 3:30 because the K-State women are in action at the Big 12 tournament in Kansas City.
And if this was news to you listening, found out today. Oh, wait a second.
Yeah. Hello. Thanks, Cats. Thank you, Midi Cats, for that. So we're going to have to get to a lot of the free agency news tomorrow. There will be more signings the rest of the day into tomorrow. Nothing can even become official for actual free agents until Wednesday. Some guys are official, like Russell Wilson. He was cut. He can sign anytime he wants. Same with Kevin Byard. I forgot about Kevin Byard. He's going to the Bears. Like, there's so many deals that are happening today. This is a topic for a different day, by the way. This is NFL free agency. It's crazy. It's insane. Money's flying left and right. Like, this is 3 days worth of sports talk happening in the last 3 hours. Meanwhile, a guy who is a top end starter on a team that just won the World Series might just like take the year off in Major League Baseball. Like maybe Jordan Montgomery will take a gap year and he'll just like go backpack across Europe this summer.
Yeah. Reigning National League Cy Young Award winner Blake Snell just still cooling in the cut.
Just hanging.
Yeah.
We haven't had a big baseball signing in what? Like
Bellinger?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, Matt Chapman, that was kind of a big deal.
Yeah. But those came right after each other.
Yeah.
Well, a few days in baseball's right after each other. Greg and I were having this conversation moments ago. Greg Akagi. Like just the two differences between the two leagues. One, Kirk Cousins signing for $180 million is going to feed families and memes for the next 4 years. Meanwhile, like we moved on from Shohei Ohtani getting $500 million in like 10 minutes. Like, okay, yeah, that's nice. Let's move on. Like
that's football, man.
That's football.
That's
baseball.
It's our national religion.
We would love to get your thoughts on anything we're talking about on the show. We're obviously going to get to Chris Jones here in just a minute. The rest of the NFL coming up later on this hour. We'll recap the state tournaments. There was college basketball this weekend. I would personally like to forget what happened across college basketball this weekend, to be completely honest with you. Not a great weekend for your boy. But K-State had a big win. We'll get to that. We'll get to a quick good and bad and ugly before we get good, the bad, and the ugly before we get out of the show today. Again, we're done at 3:30. So we've got a lot to jam in. Hit us up on the Top City Metal Supply text line, 785-272-9429, or you can jump in and join us on the YouTube stream. Head over to youtube.com, search 580 Sports Talk. That is where you can find us on YouTube. Also streaming live on Facebook and Twitter today. Twitter stream popping off again. I don't know who's watching us on Twitter, but whoever you are, thank you for doing so. Let's get to Chris Jones. The big news from the weekend. It was broken yesterday. It was made official today. Chris Jones got the bag from the Kansas City Chiefs. Your official terms for Chris Jones. 5 years, $158.75 million, $101 million guaranteed, $30 million signing bonus. He signed on the dotted line today, got that payment right up front. First 2 years, fully guaranteed. And then the third year, 2026, that guarantees a year ahead of time. So effectively, he's fully guaranteed for 3 years, and he's going to get $101 million over those years. This tells you what the Chiefs think of Chris Jones, the player, the person, the locker room influence, the franchise icon. They broke all of their tendencies. Not only did they give out this massive deal to a defensive player, which they have not done under Brett Veach, they gave it to a guy over 30 who had openly flirted with free agency. I mean, this is completely out of the realm of normalcy for how the Brett Veach front office, and frankly, the Andy Reid front office, for the most part, John Dorsey was his own thing, but that's totally different, a total tendency breaker from how they have handled defensive players in all of those different categories. That tells you, A, what they think of Chris Jones, and B, what he means to this team, because the entire defense is anchored around Chris Jones, and it's going to remain that way now for, at bare minimum, 3 more years.
I was beginning to think it wasn't going to get done based upon his tweets on Friday.
Welcome to Chris Jones' free agency Twitter.
And then Saturday morning with the hourglass, I'm like, oh, here we go.
Yeah, no, see, this is great. Spencer, now in the last few days, this is a great time of year to become a part of this. Jump right into college basketball season, follow a Super Bowl run, cover the state tournament, and now you got to see contract negotiation Chris Jones tweets. We remember 2020 when it was every single day, it was like, oh my God, Chris Jones is, this is the young and the restless football edition. Like the tweets every day, overwhelmingly so. I mean, I'm glad they got it done. I'm surprised it was this big of a deal, to be honest with you. I thought he was going to get this contract. I knew he was going to get paid. Highest ever annual value for a defensive tackle. I did not think he was going to get that money. I really didn't.
So at the end of the day, this comes down to, for me, the deal the Chiefs had to do. They had to get to Chris Jones's number because they could not go to the rest of that locker room and say, we are in pursuit of something that's never been done in the history of this league, back-to-back Super Bowls. But yeah, we're going to go ahead and do it without our best defensive player. We're going to go ahead and do it without the most unique player that we have on our defense, the elite player, the emotional leader, the future Hall of Famer on our defense. Yeah, we decided to pass on paying him what he was worth. So good luck on that title defense, guys. We'll sprinkle the money here and there, but we could do it for Chris Jones. I don't think that was tenable. This had to get done. The Chiefs had to keep Chris Jones in the fold. If they wanted to be serious about winning a 3rd Super Bowl in a row, which again, never been done. And the Chiefs should absolutely be all in on the prospect of trying to do it again. Go try and make history. Go, I'm not saying mortgage your entire future for one season, but this is not the time to take a step back. The time to take a step back, that already happened. That was 2 years ago. 2 years ago was the time to take a step back. And then they won 2 Super Bowls. This is the time to continue to put your foot forward. This is the run it back off season. The one after they won their first one. This is the part 2, complete with new deal for Chris Jones, just like the run it back off season. But this is when you run it back. And you could not run it back without Chris Jones. You could not. You could not, if you were Brett Veach, if you were Clark Hunt, Mr. F-, who I have to note, it was a very funny tweet, Chris Jones tweeting Clark Hunt's name and the black hand shaking the white hand emoji, and then A+. I really enjoyed that tweet.
Yeah.
Chris Jones is a very good poster as professional athletes go. He's
extremely good poster.
He's one of the better posters. But if you're Clark Hunt, you're Brett Veach, you can't go back in that locker room and say, hey, we're doing everything we can for you guys to have this chance, this unique chance in NFL history, but we're not bringing the Hall of Famer back on defense. We're not bringing the interior pass rushing specialist in a league where there are, 5 of those guys? It ain't much bigger a number than that. And there aren't many who are more accomplished, more productive, mean more to their teams than Chris Jones means to the Chiefs. This had to happen. And I know that the Katz brothers and Chris Jones knew that too. And they sat at their number and they said, we're not doing anything less than the biggest deal for a defensive tackle in the history of the National Football League. And that's exactly what they got. So kudos to them for being patient. I don't know how much credit I give the Chiefs here. Like I said, they had to do this.
Yep.
But credit for them doing what they had to do. And now that trinity of Mahomes and Kelsey and Jones gets to run it back, and everything feels intact. There will be players that the Chiefs lose, important players, good players. We know that Drew Tranquill won't be one of them. He got a nice little 3-year deal over the weekend. We know that L'Jarius Sneed now probably will be. I can't imagine they let him play on the tag. I think that's going to be a trade at some point. But there will be other players who are not part of this moving forward. But as long as 3 elite future Hall of Famers are a part of this, and as long as one of those is a pass rushing machine who can dominate a game, and one of those is the greatest tight end ever, and one of them is the greatest quarterback ever, then I like the Chiefs' chances to go and run this back for a 3rd straight year. They did what they had to do to give themselves the best chance to make NFL history. And worry about years 4 and 5 of this deal when you get to years 4 and 5 of this deal. Because the way that the deal is done, really, it's the financial pain is in the first 3 years. And not even really the first year. Because his cap number this coming season is only like $7 million. A lot of the cap pain is deferred.
Mm-hmm.
So what this deal really comes down to is we think he'll be highly productive for the next 3 years. We can get out of it if it starts to decline, if it starts to go the wrong direction. It won't be easy. There will be some dead cat we got to eat. But if it comes to that, the Chiefs give themselves an out with the nature of the deal.
Yeah, we'll get some more of the financial stuff and the implications of that long term coming up on tomorrow's show. Too much to get to with this today. This does set up the rest of the offseason, though, for the Kansas City Chiefs, because now we've said this, everything hinged on this. And now you can go forward and make the rest of the moves that need to be made. That includes what is going to happen with L'Jarius Sneed. We don't know. You've got to figure out what exactly that is going to end up looking like. This is going to inform you what other players could we go out and sign or bring back, or frankly, what is the draft approach going to look like? Because if you didn't get this deal done, and again, I've assumed for a while now that they would, interior defensive lineman was suddenly going to be a massive need for this team. Very suddenly, you had to ask yourself, okay, where in the draft is Chris Jenkins going to go, and how high up do we need to trade for that guy? Like, that's the kind of things you were going to have to consider draft-wise if you were the Chiefs. Now, that is much less of a need. Depth is, yes, but no longer do you need to plug in a number 1 starter at your 3 technique, who can also, by the way, get after the quarterback from the 1 tech and also is going to play on the edge. You no longer need to fill all of those spots because that's done. But this informs the rest of the offseason. Maybe this limits you a little bit more what you're able to do as the Chiefs. But I mean, we all kind of agreed already, right, that a lot of the free agency moves were probably going to be short-term deals, a lot of 1-year guys, maybe 1 or 2 who got extended deals. I mean, you've brought back now 2 of your most important pieces on this defense. I still think, and are we all in agreement, Sneed's probably getting traded at this point?
Yeah, that feels inevitable.
That feels fairly inevitable. So you're probably going to need to sign 1 or 2 1-year guys in the secondary, maybe another linebacker. Like, that's, you're pretty much set. Like, this was the cornerstone piece of the offseason. So if anyone comes up to you and says, I can't believe the Chiefs didn't go out and spend to get X, Y, or Z guy, tell them, well, they did. They signed Chris Jones. That was the big piece of the offseason. And while it's always fun to get the new shiny piece, any new shiny piece was going to pale in comparison if you lost Chris Jones. So to bring him back, I mean, that's the cornerstone of your offseason. It's the most important part of your offseason. Bringing back him, bringing back Drew Tranquill, this is already a win of an offseason for the Chiefs, honestly. Already a win, even if you have to trade L'Jarius Sneed.
Yeah, because you maintain the elite talent. Because that was the one thing. Yes, the tendency breaker for the Chiefs is to give players long contracts when they get to their 30s, extend players, do market-setting deals other than for the quarterback, of course, which you do that for the QB. Every team does that for the QB. Not every team is willing to do that for, the defensive tackle. And the Chiefs have previously not been one of those teams willing to, set the market. But elite talent is how you win championships. The Chiefs have 3 championships because of the elite talent that they have on their roster. You win with stars, you win with Hall of Famers, and the Chiefs have 3 future Hall of Famers that have been the core of this Super Bowl group, and they get a chance, all of them, to come back and go try and win another one next year. A chance for real immortality. I mean, we're already talking about this group of Chiefs as a team for all time. They are the team for this decade. They are to the 2020s already what the Steelers were to the 1970s and the 49ers of the 80s and the Cowboys of the 90s and the Patriots of the 2000s. That is the space that this Chiefs team occupies, but immortality awaits this group if they can do what nobody's ever done and win a third Super Bowl in a row. And keeping the big three, if you will, of guys who are, in my mind, headed to Canton someday. Mahomes will walk in the day he retires. Kelsey the same. I don't know that it will be immediate for Chris Jones, but as I've talked about before, the best players on all those dynasty team defenses, even if they were not considered defense first teams, the best players on those defenses are either in the Hall of Fame or going to be. So Chris Jones is going to get there too. And now you've got that group together to go make it happen and set the tone and set the example as the Chiefs continue to get younger at some other spots. And I think that's extremely valuable, and it sets the right tone for the rest of this offseason and the next season that we don't intend to take a step back. We intend to go get this third Super Bowl in a row.
Had to get it done. Had to get it done. I mean, that was number one thing. You had to get this done. A, just because of all the points Dan brought up earlier about why he is so important to this team, but also this you build the offseason around this. This was the cornerstone move of the offseason. So I'm glad it's happening. I'm glad he's not going anywhere.
Super Bowl celebration speech now seems poetic.
Yeah, well, there's the other thing. Now it feels like, it was destiny. We knew this was going to end up happening. Now we can look back on that with very, very rose-colored glasses.
And I gotta believe the Chiefs did know, and that there was always a desire for this to happen. It just practically maybe didn't make as much sense to do in the last offseason when they had the ability to use the tag and then use some of that other money to do some of those smaller one-year deals that help the team improve on the fringes. Well, now when the opportunity comes to get a longer-term deal done and it makes more sense financially, I really believe the Chiefs always had this outcome in mind, that it was never a thought that Chris Jones was going to wear any other uniform.
Yeah, there's the thing. I don't think he ever plays another game for another team. Even if the Chiefs say, hey, in 3 years we're moving on, I think that will be it for Chris Jones. I do not think he will play a single snap for a team that is not the Kansas City Chiefs. Hold on to this one. Maybe that'll change come 4 years from now, but I think he will play the entirety of his career with the Kansas City Chiefs. A lot going on around the NFL today. It is actively all blowing up all over the place. We'll talk some more free agency later on, but on the other side of this break, we're going to recap what was a phenomenal and full of victory weekend for a lot of our local teams from the state basketball tournaments. That's coming up on the other side of this break as we're just getting started on this shortened edition of 580 Sports Talk. Just getting started here on 580 Sports Talk on this Monday afternoon after a few days off for the state tournament. First day of legal tampering in the NFL as well. We'll get back to the NFL free agency news in just a moment. But first, what a weekend at the state tournaments across the state. We ended up with a couple of state champions from Shawnee County, a runner-up as well, a third-place finisher as well. What a weekend. Our whole crew doing a great job. Dan, Spencer, Greg as well. Calling games all weekend long. Action you heard right here on 580 WIBW. A lot of fun ones. Why don't we start with the 5A champs on the girls' side of things? Seaman, I'm just so happy for that school, for those kids, for head coach Matt Tinsley. They have been so close. So many, 6 of the last 7 years they've been to state. I know that 2020 team, they put up a banner for them for making it to state. They're Forever Five, they called it. That
Forever
team,
Four, yeah.
Forever Four, yeah, excuse me.
Because they got to the semifinal that year, and they were going to play Aquinas. And look, Aquinas had won 4 titles in a row before that, would go on to win the next 3. And who's to say who would have won that game? But not having the chance with that group of players, I know was something that was really hard for everybody involved with that program, certainly for head coach Matt Tinsley. And this is an entirely new group of players. Mm-hmm. Obviously, we're 4 years down the road. So none of these players were involved with that program. But it's
a lot of them were last year, though.
Yes, and it's about the standard that 2020 team set. And having that opportunity to play for the right to go to a state final that they didn't get when they lost early in 2021, and they didn't get last year when they entered the tournament as the number 1 seed and then got knocked out by St. James Academy. And I think that was the moment where the program regrouped. They got up off the mat. They said, we know how we need to get tougher. We know how we need to get better. And then they went out and they did it. They put in the work. They scheduled St. James and beat them back in December, which I'm sure was a huge turning point. A game that made this team realize that this year could be different. They did not have, by any stretch, an easy path through this state tournament. They got matched up right away with a league rival in DeSoto, who they had beaten twice in the regular season, yes, but by a combined 8 points. There were no promises in meeting number 3 that it was going to be any different. But Seaman really kind of controlled the game in the second half. And they were dominant in the third quarter, pushed their lead out, and they went and won the game. Then they had to go through the undefeated number 1 team in the state in Andover with 2 Division I signees in their lineup and a third who's going to be a Division I player in their junior post, Aaliyah Green. And they trailed at halftime. There was a lid on the rim. They missed 24, their first 28 shots. Feels like everything's going against you. Took a breath, came out for the third quarter, dominated the third quarter, took a lead, went on a 19-0 run, and ended up winning the game. And then they get to the state final against a Maize South team with the player I thought was the most impressive, maybe individually in the tournament, Ashley Singate, who's going to Butler Community College, their senior point guard. And they played a great second quarter, took a sizable lead, and then once again dominated the third quarter, pushed the lead out to 25 points, and really kind of coasted from there to the program's second state championship, first one since 1991. I heard Matt Tinsley say this on one of the local news channel. I don't remember which, and I apologize. I'd like to correctly attribute. I think it was KSNT. I had been confused all year why Siemens players all seem to be wearing the same number on their warm-ups. Like, I would look out, and Ava Esser, who wears number 40, had number 33 on her warm-up. I'm like, why does she have number 33 on her? That's not Maggie Molden. Maggie Molden wears number 33. That made sense. But everybody else had 33 on their warm-up, too. I'm like, what's going on? That was the number of years. That's how long it is. So that was really kind of their mission statement, that this was going to be the year. And then they went out and they made sure that this was the year. So delighted for Matt Tinsley, who is a family friend of my wife's side and somebody I've really enjoyed covering over the years that I've gotten to do this. And he's been Siemens head coach. Delighted for him, for his coaching staff. Steve Alexander's been at that school forever. Steve Darting used to coach there on the boys' side. He's been there a long time with Matt. And of course for the players. I mean, in the way that they performed in this tournament was their very best. They were their very best in the biggest moment, and that's an awesome thing.
Then I think it's important to know, because so much of it is narrative driven, and the storylines and the emotion that goes into it. That's an insanely talented team. Like, that is a remarkably talented. Anna Becker's going to go play Division I basketball.
Maddie Gregg certainly will.
She absolutely will.
Kaylin Stahlbomber can play whatever sport she wants in college.
Yeah, I mean, she's incredible. Jada Stahlbomber, who last year was a role player for the Seaman team. I mean, we saw, when I was doing the games last year, we saw Seaman basketball a lot. And she was a nice player, but she came off the bench. She was unbelievable in the state tournament. She was awesome.
She took over the Andover game in that third quarter during that run that at one point was 23-3 and 19-0. Jada Stahlbomber was the best player on a court that featured, I think, 5 players are going to play Division I basketball. She was the best player on the court.
And we should also note, talking about how happy we are for Coach Tinsley, you and I were talking about this weekend. He is an incredible coach. Like, let's not just talk about, the motivational stuff and the narrative stuff. No, Matt Tinsley is a hell of a basketball coach.
Yeah, they pushed all the right buttons. They went to a zone against Andover in that second half, really kind of flummoxed the Trojans. They didn't have a counter for that and, started settling for shots and missing those shots. And then when Seaman started making shots, you could sense their confidence grow. They run, like, sometimes teams will, throw a zone at you, like May South threw a zone at Seaman in the championship game. And some teams, they don't practice a lot against zone, or they don't have a great counter for a curveball, right? Like, it's like a baseball player who can't hit a curveball. Zone defense a lot of times is used as a curveball. Like Jim Boeheim used it as his fastball. But a lot of times zone defense is a curveball. And Matt Tinsley's teams always have a counter for the curve. They always have a set they can get to, a spot they can get to, a play they can run. They were comfortable against whatever they saw. They were so prepared.
On the 3A side of things, Spencer was down there in Hutch all weekend for the 3A girls. Silver Lake finishes it off, the 26-0. I mean, and shout out to Hayden, too, for the third place finish. Want to make sure we give some acknowledgement.
Yeah, that was a fun game when those two teams matched up in the semifinals on Friday.
Mm-hmm.
And, a lot of people would probably wanted that to be a state championship matchup if you're from around here.
I know we did.
But unfortunately, the brackets didn't work out that way for them to be in the state final together. But, I mean, Mackenzie McDaniel's a legit player. She's going to Emporia State.
Yep.
But the sophomore, Caitlin Haney, really, really impressed. She had 26 points in the final game, and a lot of those she went 14 of 15 at the line because she kept getting fouled with the few minutes left. When the game, it was 66-61. The game wasn't heavily in their favor. Like 99% of their games had been this year.
Mm-hmm.
And their two of the, I think what's now 4 games they finished the season with where they didn't win by 20 points. Those were their 2 final games of the year. Their 2 most challenging games of the year to get the state championship. They had to go through Hayden. That was a really good game, and they kept it closer than I think a lot of people had anticipated.
Mm-hmm.
And then in this one, Heston kept it really close to finish it out, but 26 points for Kaylin. And she really impressed there, and I think she was third when it comes to points over the tournament. She didn't have that many points in the first couple games, so she had 26 in the final. She averaged 16.7 when it was all said and done through the 3 games. Mackenzie McDaniel averaged 21 a game. So those 2 players put the team on their back in the final game, and they finally got that state championship.
Yeah, and they pretty much ran it back, almost everybody back from last year's team, which was really, really good. Brought them back for this year's team, and they were able to finish it off. I told you guys when we were going into the tournament, Kyle Porter, who, again, you want to talk about a great coach. He is a sensational coach for that Silver Lake girls team. 2018 and then 2019, back-to-back years. When he was at Royal Valley, he got that 2018 team there, kind of an upstart program. I was there with them in Hutch when that team went to the 3A championship game. Came up a little bit short, brought everybody back the next year. Even better, won the state title. Incredibly similar this year at Silver Lake, maybe with equal or even better talent with the team that they've had out there at Silver Lake these last couple of years. So big shout out to them. The Washburn Rural girls, they came up short against Shrine Mission South in their championship game.
Just getting to the final, though, for a third straight year was a really outstanding accomplishment for this Washburn Rural team that at times really struggled this year, had difficulty scoring in a way that's been really rare to see from a Washburn Rural team. At times they didn't have that secondary scoring or that third tier scoring that you kind of take for granted that they're going to get behind the star players that they always have. And this year they really leaned on Maddie Vickery and Zoe Canfield to do the bulk of their scoring. And when Vickery struggled against some really talented defense, like Shy Michelle was the number one seed. They were the best team in that tournament, and good value for their championship. But when they held Vickery down in the state championship game, you didn't get that offense, and that kind of proved to be that, and turnovers, which were another Achilles heel for Kevin Bordewick's team this year, kind of proved to be their downfall in the title game. But to get there, to get the contributions they got from Ella Hershey, who's just a sophomore, from Kate Hink, who was tremendous defensively all 3 days and is just a junior, Tenley Bunk, another young player, is going to be back next year, had a really good tournament as well. Just goes to show you that they were prepared for the moment, and that's the biggest thing for Washburn Rurals. Even as they struggled, even as they lost games to state-ranked teams in the regular season, you had a feeling they would rise to the occasion when it mattered most, because that's what they're used to doing there. It becomes a habit after a while, and I think it really is a habit for Washburn Rural. Oh, does the calendar say March? Go time. And they did. They pulled off a very an upset win over Wichita Heights in their first game, an overtime thriller over Derby in the semifinal, in the Final Four game. Great tournament run for that great program.
Yeah, and I know Zoe Canfield obviously moving on to KU. That's a huge loss, and some other veterans on that program who are moving on next year. Maddie Vickery is only going to get better. Yeah. Which, if you are 6A, be scared. You should be worried. We mentioned that the Hayden girls finished with a third-place finish in 3A. That's an awesome accomplishment for them. That's a really veteran team, and a big shout-out to Coach Carvel Reynoldson and that group. Highland Park, I feel for Coach Mike Williams, who is such a good guy and has done such a great job with that program, and God, they were so close.
So they've lost to the champs the last 2 years in the semifinal. And I suppose that there's, I'm sure, some consolation in that, knowing that the team that beat you was the best team. The big difference, and I was talking about this with Rick Peterson, and I'm sure it'll come up later on this week during the high school whip around. Last year against Andover, in Emporia, it felt like Highland Park gave that game away.
It did.
That they played an uncharacteristic kind of game, and that they gave it away in the final minute. I don't think they will feel that way about their overtime loss to Cape and Mount Carmel. I think they can walk away from that game feeling like, hey, Capen took it. They made one more shot than we did. It wasn't Highland Park melted down. Highland Park didn't do this. Highland Park played recklessly. Highland Park turned it over. Highland Park was reckless and gave the game away. No, they were in control. They played composed. They played poised. They played tough. Cape and Mount Carmel made one more shot, and that was the ball game. And so I really think that Highland Park can hold their heads high from that performance. They came back and down a good chunk of the third place game. They outscored May South 28-10 in the fourth quarter. They stepped on the gas against the tournament's number one seed and beat them to claim the third place trophy for a second straight year. They're 47-3 in the last 2 years. I know they don't have the trophies they want from those 2 seasons, from those 2 trips to state, but it's coming. It's coming for that program because they did take a step forward, even with all those graduation losses. They were more prepared for state. They played better at state, I think, this time around. And next year, Ja'Cory Robinson, who I thought was the best player in the city this year, he's going to be back. And Michael Williams Jr., Mikey Williams, he's going to be back. And they're going to have the horses to make another run.
And they will. I am confident of that. They are going to make another run. Heck of a week at the state tournament. And again, huge shout outs to everybody who finished on the podium and including those state champions.
Want to also acknowledge, if we could, Axtell third place finish out at 1A Division 2, I believe. That was that was out in Great Bend. Congratulations to them. Linden, heartbreaking championship game loss. And that Mound Ridge program, I mean, there's a reason they're back-to-back champs. But if the only team to beat you is the champ, then you had a whale of a season. So salute to Linden and their second place finish in Class 2A as well. Just a couple of the local or the outlying teams that wanted to make sure we salute.
No, I appreciate you doing that. I know a lot of people around here listening for those programs and others. So really fun state tournament around Northeast Kansas. Really was. And again, want to give a shout out to all those podium finishers from the area, from the county, and the 2 champions as well, Silver Lake and the Seaman girls picking up championships in 2024. Let's get to a break. NFL free agency continues to get wild. We'll get to some of the biggest storylines next on 580 Sports Talk. Short show today here on 580 Talk, which, I mean, I'm not going to complain about. But a lot of NFL news to get to. So we're going to have to get to some of these headlines coming up tomorrow as we recap what's been a wild start to legal tampering. We're going to hit the high notes here. I'm going to just say it really quickly because I want to get over being sad as quick as possible. We don't have to dwell on it. The Packers are signing Josh Jacobs. They let go of David Bakhtiari and Aaron Jones. Bakhtiari, I get. He has played 18 games in 3 years. Aaron Jones, I'm not sure I'm going to get it. This one is, I think, worse than when Jordy Nelson was cut live when we were on the air a few years ago.
Wow.
Yeah. It was right during Random Question Tuesday when Jordy Nelson got cut, and I said, when was the last time you had your heart broken? And I vividly remember Dan going, okay, man. Without the context that Jordy Nelson had just been cut. I have a very vivid... I was sitting right there, and... I
wish that was cut and we could just play that real quick.
I have the clearest memory of that. Then I gave the context, and Jake and Dan went, oh, okay, I get it. Aaron Jones getting cut. That one's going to stick with me for a while. All right, we can move that past that one now. The biggest news of the day is that Kirk Cousins is headed to the Atlanta Falcons. That is not all that much of a surprise. Let's not forget, though, he is in his mid-30s and is coming off a torn Achilles tendon. He got 4 years, $180 million, $100 million guaranteed.
I'm flabbergasted.
That's a good word.
He just... I wanted to be clear, and this is not even necessarily a criticism, because everyone is in the business and what business they are in for different reasons. Kirk Cousins cares about one thing, and it is getting the most money guaranteed to him possible. And honestly, most people in life are like that. We only treat athletes differently in that regard. Like, tons of people work in industries they don't like for decades, but they make a lot of money, so they do it anyway. Kirk Cousins is here to get the bag. He is not here to worry about Super Bowls. He's not here to take hometown discounts. He is here to get paid and get paid as much as possible. And good for him.
Which, if I would have known this when he was in Washington, I wouldn't have been as sad that he left to go to the Vikings and he wouldn't sign a long-term deal here.
Yeah, that's fair.
And looking back on it, I was really sad then because I was like, oh, third-round pick, kind of like Russell Wilson. He's a guy, obviously RG3 didn't work out, but Kirk Cousins could work out. Oh, nope, he's going to go to the Vikings.
Nah, he wanted the bag.
Has anybody at the quarterback position made more for doing less than Kirk Cousins?
Nope.
Incredible the size of the contracts that he has gotten.
We looked this up earlier. He has made in his career. He's been in the league 12 years, 6 with Washington, including 4 where he didn't even make $1 million. He's a 4th-round pick.
4th, yeah.
And then he got 2 franchise tags, and then the massive contracts in Minnesota. 12 years in the NFL, almost $232 million earned, 4 playoff games. Not 4 playoff wins, 4 playoff games.
No, actually, now that you factor in his $100 million guarantee from the Falcons, Kirk Cousins has now made the second most money of any quarterback in the history of the National Football League. And in fact, of any player in the history of the NFL. Real quick, do you know number one is? You know who's made the most money?
Tom Brady, right?
No, because he kept taking
Tom Brady, not even
Vargas.
Oh, yeah.
Tom Brady's not even in the top 10. This list is really funny. Aaron Rodgers is number
one. I was going to say it's probably Rodgers. I was going to call him 12.
Probably Rodgers. Aaron Rodgers is number 1. Kirk Cousins is 2. Matthew Stafford is 3rd. That's the $300 million plus range. And hey, at least Rodgers and Stafford have Super Bowl rings.
And MVPs.
Kirk Cousins
not Stafford.
Kirk Cousins hasn't played in a conference championship game.
Nope.
The $200 million club is just one guy. That's Russell Wilson. He's 4th all time.
Brady didn't even get there.
You know who is 5th all time?
Who?
You could sit here all day. You would never guess. It is Ryan Tannehill. Ryan Tannehill has made $196 million in his career.
No, it both sounds ridiculous, but also kind of makes sense. Like, based on when he was drafted, got an extension once, got a big free agent deal. That's higher than I would have thought, but I guess I sort of get that one at least.
6 through 10 for the record are Von Miller, Joe Flacco, Trent Williams, Ndamukong Suh, and Derek Carr.
People are going to forget about Ndamukong Suh and how great he was. He was great.
Oh, yeah.
He was really great.
Unbelievable football player. He's going to Canton someday.
Oh, yes. I would agree with that. So that's Kirk Cousins. That's crazy. Russell Wilson's going to Pittsburgh. Found that out last night.
Yes.
I wasn't surprised when I heard he was taking that meeting. I'm like, that'd be an interesting fit with Arthur Smith as offensive coordinator.
So it's interesting.
But Kenny Pickett's situation was weird to factor in.
Yeah. Unfortunately, I think Kenny's done.
Yeah.
That's it for Kenny Pickett. He's a backup now. It's over.
They're calling that a competition, but
it ain't.
It's not.
Russell Wilson was not going anywhere where he wouldn't be the starter.
Right.
Exactly.
So two things that Arthur Smith's offenses do a lot of. One is use the middle of the field. That is extremely not a Russell Wilson thing. The other is play action. That is extremely a Russell Wilson thing. So the question for Arthur Smith, as it is for every coach and every offensive coordinator who has ever had Russell Wilson as their quarterback, how willing are you to build the entire plane out of the things that Russell Wilson does well? Because you're not changing Russell Wilson. You're definitely not changing 34-year-old, 35-year-old Russell Wilson?
Mm-hmm.
You're 13 in the league, Russell Wilson. You're not changing him. He is what he is. So are you willing to put him in situations that will get the best out of him, or are you going to do what Sean Payton did and get the results that Sean Payton got, which were not great? The Steelers were almost a playoff team with Kenny Pickett being lousy this last year. They've got a pretty good roster still. George Pickens is going to run underneath some deep balls. He's a better receiver than anybody the Broncos have employed the last 2 years for Russell Wilson to work with. I think that there is an extent to which this works just fine for the Steelers and could get the 7 seed. I could certainly see that happening because I think Russ has a little bit of decent football left in him. But the question all comes back to Arthur Smith. How willing are you to do the Russ stuff and maybe put in your hip pocket the stuff that you like to do, but he doesn't?
Here's why I think this isn't going to work out. Arthur Smith, you make the Sean Payton point in Denver. Arthur Smith had Kyle Pitts, Drake London, Bijan Robinson, and was adamant, we are going to use Jonnu Smith and you are going to have to live with it. And now suddenly we're going to move to another team and he's going to come in with a quarterback who has a quarterback who one way or the other is my way or the highway. And I'm not going to believe that he's going to change things. Also, Russell Wilson in his career, I heard this on the Athletic Football Show. This is from Nate Tice. Russell Wilson in his career, the highest percentage of throws over the middle he's made in his entire career, 8.8%. The lowest number of plays over the middle for a quarterback in Arthur Smith's career as a play caller, 13%. They're a playoff team if you just improve from Kenny Pickett and Mitch Trubisky, and I think that is going to happen with Russell Wilson. They're just, I don't see the fit. I don't think they make sense as a fit. But again, he's better than Kenny Pickett, so that's obviously an improvement there. Other headlines from today, and again, we'll get to a lot of this tomorrow because we're just short on time for today. Saquon Barkley to Philadelphia. He gets nearly $38 million, 26 of it guaranteed. I mean, better running back market this year than last year.
I'm just shocked it was the Eagles.
The Eagles are having a weird day.
I'm shocked too.
They just gave a free agent deal to DeAndre Swift last year, didn't bring him back, even though he was okay. They went with Saquon. I don't know. Saquon's a good player, a really good player.
Yeah.
Is that going to solve the problems Philadelphia had last year?
No.
I don't really think it does, to be honest with you. The other running back news, again, Josh Jacobs is going to Green Bay. Aaron Jones getting cut. That's crazy. DeAndre Swift is going to Chicago. 3 years, $24 million, 16.5 of that in the first 2 years. I mean, it's a better running back market than last year, but it's also better players who are on the market this year than last year. Do you remember who the highest paid running back last year in free agency was?
I do not.
It was Miles Sanders, but Inches Sanders is probably a better name because he was terrible. He was so awful bad in Carolina. Speaking of Carolina, we'll get to this because it's ridiculous. They're giving a guard $100 million.
What?
They're giving Robert Hunt, a good player, $100 million, 63 guaranteed. A guard! They need an offensive line. Like, I get that. You could have gotten 90% of the player for 40% of the money with someone else.
The Carolina Panthers with salary cap space are like a mule with a spinning wheel. Nobody knows how they got it, and damned if they know how to use it.
Also, real quick, why don't we get to two other quick moves? Christian Wilkins to the Raiders, $85 million guaranteed. I actually kind of like that for the Raiders.
I love that.
Pair him with Max Crosby.
I really love it for Max Crosby.
Also, let's give a shout out to a former Kansas Jayhawk, Dorrance Armstrong, 3 years, $45 million going to Washington. You said you didn't know who that is? you're going to learn. Good
Yeah,
player.
I think I've already learned a little bit. I think he's a real good player looking at what I've seen so far.
Yeah, really good player. Happy for him. We've got to get to some college basketball from the weekend coming up after the news. Tomorrow, 3 o'clock, half hour of 580 Sports Talk coming your way. Brendan Dworzynski, Dan Lucero, and Spencer Dupuis here with you. It has been a wild day of NFL free agency, and, well, guys, we're out of here in about 25 minutes. We've got K-State women's hoops coming up tonight.
Semifinals of the Big 12 women's basketball tournament. Championship game, of course, tomorrow night. So that's coming up. Stay tuned. We got the pregame coverage as K-State takes on Texas at 3:30. Tip-off at 4, give or take. Things going a little slow in the other semifinal. Iowa State is hammering Oklahoma. They're up by 28 with 4:50 to go.
SEC.
It appears that Hilton South also applies to the women's tournament.
I'm not surprised at all about that, to be honest with you.
That doesn't surprise me even a little bit, especially with all of the Kansas presence that is on that Iowa State team.
Oh, yeah.
Addie Brown from Derby, Emily Ryan, of course, Central Plains. That doesn't surprise me in the least that they have traveled well. Meanwhile, our guy Spencer is dying a slow death across the glass watching the Sun Belt Championship.
Yeah, I am. It's a game of runs right now.
On the women's side. The Thundering Herd up, 2:59 to go. Is that current?
That is not. They're up by 1 right now. There's 2:37 to go. It is.
Okay.
There's another free throw coming to tie it.
We've all been there. We've all been in the position Spencer is in right now.
The part that sucks is that, now it's tied. Rooting for mid-majors really sucks because it's like if you don't win the conference tournament, there is no hope in going to the NCAA tournament.
No.
Really,
Man,
unless you play
30
like
wins.
What?
Oh no, I'm thinking of James Madison.
Yeah, they have
wins,
20.
Saints Madison women have 30 wins.
They have 25.
Or men, rather.
Men, yeah. I'm thinking of the wrong Sun Belt team.
But yeah, that might. There's
Yeah.
a chance that if they don't
Yeah.
win, that they could go in. But
yeah, it's
all
crazy.
right.
Indiana State might not get in on the men's side. Like that's preposterous.
What's better for the NCAA tournament? Robbie Avila, a recognizable college basketball player and a fun mid-major in Indiana State that people would learn to love and embrace, or the most mid-Villanova team in 20 years?
Yeah, but Dan, Greg Sankey told me that it's good when teams that are barely over 500 in the Power 5 are in the tournament because he makes money.
What's better for this tournament? Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, Larry Bird, College Jokic, all of those great nicknames, or a Virginia team that can't score 50 points?
Look, man, you're not going to get an argument from me. I am with you 100%. The idea of putting one of those lame-ass Virginia or Villanova teams in over Indiana State or James Madison or something like that is gross, but we'll find out in just about 6 days. We'll get to some college basketball here in just a second. Make sure you hit us up on the Top City Metal Supply text line if you want to respond to anything we are talking about on the show today. 785-272-9429 is the number for the Top City Metal Supply text line. From construction sites to renovations, from the farm to the garage, Top City Metal Supply understands the value of precision and cost efficiency. No more wasted materials, no more wasted money. Metal cut to the exact size you need. That's Top City Metal Supply on South Topeka Boulevard. YouTube stream is also open. Go find us on YouTube. 580 Sports Talk is what you have to search to get us there.
Did you see the one right before the end of the hour that we were on last hour for where we were on? The text from 785, the Cousins deal makes Chris Jones's deal look cheap.
Yeah, I mean, that's true. Which of those players is going to impact winning a Super Bowl more, Kirk Cousins or Chris Jones?
Chris Jones.
And by that margin, or by that metric, it's a good deal. You want to give us a score update?
Yeah, 73-72, 145 left, just hit a 3.
Let's go, Herd.
Let's go. We are.
Marsh.
We'll get some updates as the game unfolds. Let's get to some college basketball from this weekend, by the way.
Do we really want to talk about it?
Yeah, we talk about K-State.
Oh, yeah.
All right, we'll get to KU first because I think that's the one that has a little more shock value. KU got their ass kicked by Houston. I mean, there's no sugarcoating it. There's no need to sugarcoat it. Houston's the better team. The Fertitta Center is really hard to play in. It's hard to win on the road in the Big 12. KU, I figured, was going to lose and probably lose around double figures anyway. I did not expect it to be a competitive game for precisely 0 seconds, but it was a competitive game for precisely 0 seconds. Jamal Shed was going to shoot the ball 80 times if he had to will them to win, and he didn't need to. He was great. The rest of Houston was great. KU wasn't ready, and KU got its ass kicked. And then Hunter Dickinson got hurt.
He was the only double-figure scorer, too. That make sense, right?
Yeah,
he didn't play the whole game.
And McCullough didn't even play the second half, and it sounds like he shouldn't have played in the first place.
That just seemed like a resting move, though, at the point. Like,
the game was beyond them. So yeah, they
why bother, right?
Yeah. So here's my question. You have been very pointed in saying that you want to, if you're a KU fan, take this opportunity to embrace and acknowledge the fact that you're in the good old days. Like, these are the good times for KU basketball and what they have accomplished. Was Saturday the worst day of the good old days?
It depends. Probably.
And I don't like. I know, like, yeah, tournament losses always sting, but that game on Saturday, like, if Hunter Dickinson can't go, I don't know what it looks like for Kansas, but it doesn't lead anywhere good. Like, they're not beating anybody with a pulse. If Parker Brown has to play 30 minutes at center, that's not happening. Not going to take the red shirt off of Clements at this point. So
that wouldn't improve the roster anyway.
Yeah, so I don't know what you do. Like,
but you play KJ at the 5. And your lineup is, I mean, if you have McCullough, and I think he would play. I don't know how much he could play. If you have McCullough but not Dickinson, you're probably running with KJ at the 5. You're playing McCullough at the 4, and then DeJuan, Furphy, and Timberlake as your starters. I mean, that's a tiny team. That is tiny for a Big 12 team. And then you're running El Marco as your 6th man, and you got to play Parker Brown probably 10 plus minutes. And you have less depth than before. I mean, you would have to play Jankovic at that point.
Yeah, you really would.
And Jamari would have to play probably 20 plus minutes too. And for the record, I love Jamari McDowell. I think Jamari McDowell's senior year is going to be like everybody's least favorite player to play. He's going to be like a Marcus Garrett who could score. Probably not quite the defender, but like, I love Jamari McDowell. There's a reason he's only playing like 8 minutes a game this year, though, or whatever it ends up being. Like, if you don't have Dickinson, you're not making the second weekend, probably. No, I mean, even as a 4 seed, I mean, it's just not going to happen.
That's not happening. The thing that sticks out to me is you usually get, I mean, I shouldn't say usually, but in recent years, it has become more common for KU to have at least one burn the tape game each year.
Mm-hmm.
Like last year was the TCU game at home. Just throw it out. Burn the tape.
Yep.
It was ugly. It was gross. There have been multiple burn the tape games this year for this Kansas team. And what that suggests to me is who are the Jamal Sheds on this KU team? Who are the winners? Who are the dogs, for a lack of a better way to put it? Who are the guys that are you're gonna blow me out over my dead body? Where are those guys on this basketball team?
I think there is a way you could argue for 3 of them. There is also a way you could argue against all 3 of them. I think you could certainly argue DeJuan Harris, but DeJuan is he's a different kind of dog. Like, he's not going to get in your face aggressive. Like, as CJ Morris called him, he's got the slowest heartbeat in college basketball. He is going to be in it the whole way. He's going to scrap on the court, but he's a quiet leader. That's where you'd say, okay, we're not talking about that kind of guy. I think you could argue Kevin McCullough for sure. We've seen that from McCullough. TCU game in Fort Worth last year. Remember that game? KU was down for a lot of it, came back. McCullough on his own turned that game with his defense in that game. He's shown that he's hurt and he can't play at full strength. And if he's not at that full strength, and also if he's doing some of the nonsense he's done offensively in the latter half of the year, he's not that guy. I think KJ Adams can be that guy.
Sure.
And KJ, when he's good, when he's on, when he's turned up, as Bill Self likes to say, I mean, KJ can take over. He can. The problem is there have been a number of games second half of this year where he's been off. And KJ, with what he's asked to do when he's off, it gets ugly in a hurry. And he can't pull you back in like that. And he can't shoot. So he also can't shoot you back into a game.
Right.
So you're left with Johnny Furphy, who right now is he's scrambling. I mean, I told you this, and
trying to get to his second wind.
I've gone back and I've rewatched the game, and I've watched the shortened version of it and whatnot. I was on my way to Kansas City for the Big 12 or for the MIAA tournament on Saturday, and I listened to part of the K-State game, and then the waning moments of it. I flipped over to KU. and I listened to the KU radio broadcast from the start of the game to the first media timeout. And I said out loud to myself, I do not need to listen to this. And I turned it off. It was 9-2. Furphy had made like 4 mistakes in a row. And I just knew. You just know sometimes. And I knew. And I didn't think it was going to be that ugly, but I knew it was not going to be a pretty game for KU.
One last thought on that line of thinking. We have all heard, to the point where we joke about it, Bill Self's favorite word to motivate a team that he will use in a post-game press conference is soft. He loves to talk about how his team is soft when they don't get the job done, when they don't win, when they lose a tough game. I have not heard that a lot from Bill Self this year. And I suspect it's because he knows that there is a chunk of this team that he is leaning on that just does not have that it factor.
I think so. I think that's fair. I'm trying to remember. Somebody said this on Twitter the other day. They pulled up a quote from earlier in the season where they said Self was trying to tell us this at one point. I got to go back and find what the quote was, but essentially he said that, like, you're right. He knows. He knows. And I still think this team, if everybody is out there, I think this team can make it to the second weekend. I think they can win a Sweet 16 game.
Sure. Talent-wise, yeah, that's there. Like they're going to be, I think, have a starting 5 if it's all together that's better than any 6 seed that they would probably run into. But if they're not whole, I don't see it happening.
No, it feels like this team's being held together by tape and toothpicks at this point, unfortunately. Both kind of in terms of, and I don't think they're soft or mentally weak guys or anything, but I feel like this is one of those years where eventually the struggles pile up. And a lot of people have made this comparison, and we'll get to K-State in a second, I promise. 2018, 2019, when I was a good team. That was an objectively good basketball team.
Right.
With a big man in Dedrick Lawson, who was one of the best players in the country, that he had like 20 double-doubles or some nonsense.
Yes.
He had a ton of them. That was a good team. Young Devon Dotson.
Slow-mo Dedrick Lawson. I liked him very much.
Couldn't jump to save his life. But by the end of that year, going to that Auburn game in the tournament, you just, like,
you knew
it ain't happening.
Like, you knew exactly what kind of team or what kind of game they were going to lose, and then Auburn gave them that kind of game, and it was over in 5 minutes.
You had a 5-star freshman who had never quite clicked for, who you sort of knew was going to transfer. That was Quentin Grimes at the time. I'm not going to name names this year. Just putting that out there. You know, and I think Bill Self has made it clear he knows too. K-State, if it wanted any chance of making the NCAA tournament, which I still think is going to be very difficult to do, they had to win Saturday. I mean, that was your only chance, and there's still a big climb ahead of you, but you had to win that one, and they did. And credit to Jerome Tang for getting the guys ready, and credit to them. They got hairy late, but give credit to K-State for putting it away. That's a good win.
I liked that spot for K-State quite a bit. That's that last Saturday of the year. If you're the home team and you're playing a team that's coming off of a senior day win and they don't have a lot to play for in terms of league seeding or anything like that, though, Iowa State could have shared a league title if they had won and Houston had lost. Like, there was something out there for Iowa State to play for. But that's a big emotional letdown spot for that team. And the reason I know that is because I don't even have to go back any further than last year when K-State lost that exact game, when they had the home win over Oklahoma in their senior day, and then they went out to West Virginia and they got beat by a lesser team that was desperate, that had to get a win if they wanted to make the NCAA tournament, and West Virginia got them. And this was pretty much the exact same spot for Kansas State, the more desperate team playing in this spot. And I would love to see a version of K-State where both Cam Carter and Tyler Perry play well at the same time. I guess that's just not possible. I guess they just play Invasion of the Body Snatchers back and forth all the time. I don't understand why that's the case, but apparently it is, because Perry didn't give him anything, but Carter was great. Kaluma played well. Gasson was a beast. 16 boards. Holy cow.
Yeah.
All the credit to K-State. That was a tough effort. That was a strong effort for their seniors. An effort that their fans deserved, and it does. Their tournament hopes are on life support. I'm not of the mind that, they just win one game in the tournament, they're going to be fine. I still think they probably need to win the Big 12 tournament to get in. I don't think that the conference tournament wins are as big a deal to the committee.
Yep.
As they are made out to be.
I agree.
I don't think the committee really looks at those unless you win the tournament or you beat like the number one team in the country, something like that. You have to really do something impressive. And for K-State, something impressive would be winning the league, which then you would tournament, which means you would get in anyway.
Yeah, no, I'm in 100% agreement with you there. I mean, K-State comes in the net 70th this week. Like, yeah, that's not good enough. Like, they're behind Oregon, certainly not a tournament. They're behind Washington. Like, that's certainly not a tournament team.
Jerome Tang made valid points that they've got the 3 quad 1 wins and they've got no quad 3 or quad 4 losses. Normally, teams with that resume make the tournament. In fact, every team with that resume, since the quadrant system was put into place, every team with that resume has made the NCAA tournament. But this year, Butler also has that resume, and nobody's pounding the table for Butler.
No.
And again, like going back to that argument about an Indiana State team that might find themselves on the fringes of the bubble, like objectively, if you're a K-Stater, take off the purple colored glasses. Who would you rather see in this NCAA tournament? Team like Indiana State or a team like Kansas State?
Indiana State.
Yes.
Without question.
Like I objectively, that is true. From a basketball perspective, I think it's a better tournament if you've got a team like that.
No, I agree 100%. So up and down weekend, much better for K-State than for KU. We will preview the men's Big 12 tournament, by the way, coming up tomorrow. We'll probably plan for 3 o'clock. We'll do a full segment. We're just going to preview the tournament, winner picks, who needs the wins the most. We'll get to all that coming up on tomorrow's show. We only have 1 segment left before we got to get out of here. So we're going to take a quick timeout. We'll come back, get you a quick good, bad, and ugly from the weekend, a final word, and we'll send you off to K-State Women's Hoops here on 580 WIBW. Quickly here, before we send you off to the K-State Sports Network, let's recap the weekend with a real fast good, bad, and ugly. Dan, why don't you go first?
Good seeing the Seaman Lady Vikings hoist that big gold in Emporia, win that 5A girls state championship. Second in school history, first in 33 years. Tip of the cap to Coach Matt Tinsley, his staff, those girls, and an outstanding basketball team.
Spencer, you're good?
My life changed for the better, and not knowing when I woke up on Thursday that I did try Brahms. I did not realize that when you walk in there, that it is also a little market.
Yeah, the fresh market.
Also, in this economy, shout out to a $2.95 small milkshake. Like in this
deal,
economy, man. Like what?
Hey, as soon as y'all open up the store in Topeka, you hit us up. We'll work something out. Good for me. Yeah, I also had the Seaman girls, Silver Lake girls too, for their state title. Want to give them a big shout out too, and shout out to Coach Porter. For Seaman though, I've spent a lot of time with that program. Obviously, you have this year, Dan, and I had the last few years. I know they've gotten so close. That's a great school, great program, great coach, and really happy for that team. Really happy for them. You're bad.
Bad for the weekend would be that KU effort on Saturday. That was abysmal.
Spencer, do you have a bad?
My bad might be coming here in the next couple of moments. They're in overtime. Marshall's without their best player fouled out. And they're already down 2, and they just gave it away again.
2-part bad for me, 1 bad, 1 sad. I'm very sad about Aaron Jones. I love that guy. I'm sad he's on a Packer. Bad, MIAA officiating. I am not going to pull a Jake and name anyone by name, but holy cow. Northwest Missouri State doesn't need any more help than that, guys. They're good enough already. You don't have to call phantom flagrant fouls. Oh, my God, it was bad on Saturday. Tough loss for Washburn. Sad for the guys. God, that officiating was dog water. Horrible. Any ugly for you for the weekend?
Ugly for me, player and coach and fan behavior at 5A State in Emporia was not great. A lot of folks did not cover themselves in glory. Maybe encourage your own players rather than yelling at the referees every time a whistle blows or doesn't blow. It just, let them do their jobs, even if they're not as good at it as you think they ought to be. Be a little more supportive of what's going on out on the court, because it was a really toxic environment in that building at times over the course of 4 days. That was the only thing that marred a great state tournament.
Ugly for me, Thursday night, I was trying to get my recap done that we put on the Kansas High School Basketball Scoreboard show. And it was about 15 minutes after the game had ended, or 20 minutes. It was 9:45. And the workers in the arena decided to blare their music while I was trying to edit the finishing up of it. And I didn't get it edited because I had to move all my stuff to this media workroom, which I thought newspaper people would be in. I had to move it, and then I didn't end up getting it put in until 10:10, but we're good. But the ugly part was that they don't care about people that are trying to work. Just because they're trying to work, I don't care.
At least they fixed that problem for you.
Yes, it was fixed.
It's just bad on Thursday.
My ugly is a callback ugly. Mac Jones got traded for a 6th-round pick to the Jacksonville Jaguars this weekend. Steve Young once went on television on ESPN in a billion households in the country and said Patrick Mahomes could learn something from Mac Jones. That's something that a real person once said on TV. Nice job, Steve.
To learn how to hold a clipboard.
All right, you've got 3 seconds each. Final word, Dan.
Final word for me, go Mini Cats.
Go Herd, because they're getting close here.
Final word for me, Chris Jones back with the Chiefs, as it should be, as he belongs. We're back tomorrow for a full show. For Dan, for Spencer, I'm Brendan. K-State Hoops is coming up next.